Greetings everyone, it's time for a video. This video is about this Intex pump. Can't tell you the model number off the top of my head. Probably have in the description in the description and in the title. Anyway, this is a pump I've had hooked up to a sand filter. It came with the sand filter, Intex sand filter, and then I'm running it through a saltwater generator into the pool. It's not, I'm not even sure, it may not even be a year old. It's been a good pump, and then basically it started seizing up. So I'm going to plug it in and I'm going to let you hear what it sounds like. It shouldn't sound like this, which is the obvious answer. So as you can tell, that doesn't sound too good. And let's see if I can show you. May not have enough light. Well, yeah, there it is. Yeah, if you have see the light down in there, you can see it. That is the impeller right there, that kind of white thing. So when I turn back on, it should be moving. It's not. Basically, the pump seized up in some way or shape or form. My guess would be the bearings. At any rate, I am going to pull this thing open, see if I can figure out what's wrong, and then try to fix it. If you're expecting this to be some grand, this is how you fix this video, you're in the wrong place. And if you're going to complain about that, you're complaining to the wrong person. And if you're going to say I'm an idiot, feel free. It doesn't bother me. You're the one watching me. And if you want to dislike that and comment and make snarky comments, go right ahead. You're the one wasting your time doing that. On the other hand, if you're somebody who's interested in see how maybe this might work and get fixed and maybe see how this happens, well, come along for the ride and we'll see what we can figure out, or what I can figure out. You can watch and laugh at me. At any rate, I'm going to pull this thing open. I'm going to start here. So the impeller's here. This is the, flip it up so you can see, this is the filter area. Here, I'll show you, pull it off. Got this little goofy basket, you know, to help try to keep it, catch stuff. It sort of works. But on the Intex pumps, well, on the Intex pool, it kind of doesn't, because the outlets for the, or I guess they call them inlets for the pool, don't. They have a mesh and a protective basket, so they usually pick up all this stuff long before it reaches here. But that said, as you can tell, mine's a little dirty. There's some crap already in it. Anyway, I'm going to pull this off and see if I can find out, pull this housing off, and then I think I'll try to see if what else needs to come out. There's 4 screws here, 1, 2, and then there's 3, 4 on the other side. You can't really see it. This thing's so big, the camera has a hard time seeing it, or you can't get it in frame. Anyway, once I do that, and if I get further along, I'll bring you back and you can see it. And back shortly. So here's a little tip for you as I'm disassembling this. This piece is, remember the basket fits in this, right? And the lid goes over and whatnot. Inside you'll find this collar which screws on. So what happens is this thing fits like this. You take the collar off, and then with some judicious moving you can pull it off, and this makes this thing a lot easier to disassemble. So just a little tip, something that that's how that works. Anyway, moving on. Alright, back. Turns out I'm wrong about something. I thought that I was looking through here, and you can remember the covers here and all that, and I was seeing this not moving, but as it turns out, the impeller actually seems to be in 2 pieces. So the cover goes up here. Sorry, this won't be in focus. And this thing sits there, and this is the actual hooked up to the shaft of the motor itself. So, to make the point, if I turn this on, it spins. Makes a lot of noise, but it spins. So I'm curious about this. There's no coupling between these two. So I'm guessing that as this thing spins, let me see if I can put this back together real quick in the right orientation. I'm guessing that as it spins, I'm assuming the water makes it go. I don't know. It's a little perplexing to me. Not familiar with how this works. But it is. The fins, which, you can't really see them too well in there, sorry. What I showed you earlier, this piece doesn't spin. I guess maybe it's the water that makes it spin. So as this turns, and see there's veins in there, I don't know if you can see them too well. And then outside there's the water gets sucked in, and I guess as it spins it would probably be this direction because it would catch it. Yeah, maybe that works. Anyway, fling the water out because this is the return back out to the filter and thus the pool. Anyway, so this spins and this is not, but I've checked it, there's no broken parts. It just might be noisy, I don't know. Or maybe when I cracked it open I unfroze it, or maybe it wasn't frozen to begin with. It is loud and noisy though. And I pretty much have a pretty good idea why. I run, like I said, I run a salt pool, so I'm sure if I kept taking this thing apart, I would probably pretty quickly see that salt water's gotten in through whatever seal or gasket or whatever they have on the inside of this and started corroding it. I'm sure there's a bearing here that's behind this. It's actually attached to the shaft of the motor, and then I suspect there's probably a bearing on the back end to hold the shaft in place. But my guess would be that water's gotten into it and started corroding that bearing. And it's salt water, and salt water just basically destroys most metal pretty quickly. You know, stainless can obviously last a lot longer, but unless you have it sealed perfectly, and the reality is water will find a way to get wherever it needs to. It's gonna eventually let some in, and unless this is something that will not corrode when it hits salt water, even if it's just a drop or two, it's eventually going to start corroding. So that's my guess. But my next move is probably go ahead and keep going. It's loud. It shouldn't be this loud when I turn it on, even without any water. So, like I said, my guess is there's a bearing in here, probably about right here. That's going to be toast or corroded and having some problems. Anyway, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to pop it open and see what's up with it, so I can try to get a rough idea of what shape it's in. Anyway, as I move along and reach an interesting point, I'll bring you back. Alright, I'm back. Got the very top off. The power cord's here. The timer is here. On-off switch is here. Give me an idea of why I care about doing this. All the wires, you can see they go here. This is the motor itself. Impeller's over here. I need to I want to take this cover off so I can disconnect a lot. Well, I want to take this cover off so I can have easy access to this. I don't want this thing to hang over like this as I'm trying to work further. So we'll see what we can do about that. Actually, this seems to be pretty well done, honestly. Pretty impressed in terms of how clean this is. You got your ground here. You've got there's a 3 line cord coming in. Let's see, I think it's live, neutral, and then ground, and then of course it's grounding here. Now this is a plastic case, so there's not really any shock risk here, but it's still nice that they ran the ground all the way into the motor. That's where this green line is here, and then there's 3 lines going in for the motor itself. So not sure what this is. I'd have to go and do some reading, but everything's nice and plugged in. There's some, these lines have some looks like some cloth wrap around them, pretty good. Well, it's not cloth, that's actually kind of a rubbery mesh. All in all, that is pretty clean. Anyway, I'm gonna probably have to label some stuff so I can make sure to plug that back in. Everything is got the spade connectors, so this is actually pretty easy to disconnect. The only thing and probably a little more work is the ground is they use a bolt to connect it together. So I'll probably take the top one goes to the motor, so I'll probably just take it off, and then I'll take the others off. I'm going to label them though so I can make sure to put them back in the right plugs. Anyway, moving forward. Alright, things are significantly apart now. This is stator, got the rotor, got the bearings, these things. This is the front bearing. It looks good, but quite frankly, I mean, it doesn't really, it's not spinning very freely. The rear one, it seems to be honestly in even worse shape. It's pretty filthy, especially here. I don't know. What's odd or interesting, or I don't know. Never seen this before. I mean, I've taken another motor or two apart, but I've never seen anything quite like this. There's two E-clips on the inside. I'm assuming, well, I don't know really how that would prevent it from sliding off. I would think it would be more prevent it from going in, but I'm not able to pull it. So I'm going to have to go do some digging and reading. I've never seen that before. I've seen like a keyed motor, or I've seen something like even here where you've got like a slight piece cut out of the axle so that, you know, there's a little shelf. So like, for example, in this case, the fan is supposed to fit on that, and there's a shoulder, and what happens is it pops up against that shoulder, so it won't go any further. I've seen that before on HVAC motors and stuff like that, and then I've seen keyed motor shafts as well, where there's a slot and there's a piece of metal, you know, that sits there and it references, and that's what holds it in place. Anyway, gonna do some digging on this. I'm also gonna pull the bearing numbers because I'm gonna replace these two bearings, assuming I can get them off the shaft. Everything else seems pretty solid. There's nothing wrong. This is just a straight up induction motor. Everything looks pretty good shape, honestly. This is the only thing that seems to be wrong. I did notice this is, let's see if I can find the right piece. This is the, that's a shim that's in there. This is the front of the motor that faces towards where the impeller is. So you have to imagine, like, if you got this, and yeah, it'd be like this. The impeller and the water, the pump, in other words, all this stuff is over here, and this thing's spinning and, you know, doing its pulling the water and pumping it through the filter. This is the front of that motor. So the reason why that's important, the reason, I don't know if you can really tell, let's see if I can get you in frame. There is a lot of corrosion here in the front, especially down in the bottom. I've seen, can't really tell too well, but there's other little bits of this corrosion, this white stuff. This I think this might be magnesium, because that looks like magnesium corrosion that occurs. I've got a Bosch router that has a magnesium body, and I've seen that before where you get this kind of white chalky powder. I could be wrong, and maybe it's aluminum, but regardless, that's what that is. I'm going to go do some digging and see. It might be that this is the salt water. I'm pretty sure it's salt water is just getting in and it's coming down. So since the bearing's right here, normally where it sits, yeah, like this, then it's pretty clear that you can get some water in there. And this bearing doesn't. I mean, this is just a rubber seal. And I think, I'd have to pull a magnifying glass. I think I can see into the bearing, which means there's no protection, and it's not, I think it means it's not a sealed bearing, so water and stuff can get in there and really, you know, ruin your day. And then this one, I don't really know why it's so just, I mean, you can tell it's just all this burnt stuff or something. I don't know what that is. It's kind of like some kind of grease or goo. It might be that this thing's been pushing back, and this thing's really stiff too. I noticed that when I had the motor out, because I ran it actually just the motor by itself completely out other than just hooked up to the switch still, that the it was relatively quiet if you had it like on the side, but if you put it up where it normally was, you could hear a noise. And then yeah, I think it's kind of hard to tell, but I think there's a little, if you're in the right orientation, that bearing is gonna do what it's gonna probably mess up. Now, I guess if you wanted, you could cheat and rotate the bearing so that wherever the worn spot is not on the bottom anymore. But honestly, that's just gonna last you probably a few days before it's back to where it's worn out again, and that's not really an option. But I could see someone suggesting that. Anyway. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pull the numbers on these bearings. I'm going to see about getting these E-clips off, which is going to be a pain in the neck because, I mean, they're right there. They were on the other side. It'd be very easy to pull them off. You can a screwdriver or pliers, you know, thin pair of needle-nose pliers and pop them off. But on the inside, I may have to buy an E-clip tool and pop it off that way. But those are cheap. Though, you know, you can pick up a cheap one from Amazon, $15. Probably had to get one anyway since I keep running into these things and I'm sick of using screwdrivers to get them off. Anyway, as I move along, I'll bring you back in. Alright, a couple of points here. I was having a brain malfunction, said a couple things that weren't quite right. So these, there's two E-clips, one here and one here. You can't see them too well. On the inside of the bearings, I was being kind of dumb. They are actually sitting in slots similar to this one, which you might be able to see. That is to prevent the bearings from sliding in any further. That's all they are. Apart from that, they're just kind of pressed on. So these are also very common, which I kind of suspected this, but they're very common 608 bearings. The 608 RS is for rubber sealing. So they are sealed, but apparently not too well because, you know, they spin okay, but when you put them in and you start putting in under pressure, it's clear that the bearings are shot because they wouldn't be making the noise they make. Like I said, I've put this under load, just the motor itself sitting there, and you can kind of hear the grinding. You won't hear it here because it's not really under load. I'm just holding it, and that's fine. But so I've ordered a bunch of those. They're cheap, easy to find. I actually consider getting some ceramic ones because they're not very resistant to corrosion from, like, you know, marine applications or saltwater applications, which is basically what I've got. I mean, in essence, this is really a saltwater marine application that you might see. So ceramic bearings, if you get fully ceramic ones, they will resist corrosion and in theory last a lot longer, according to a lot of the information you can find online. But I cheaped out and went, I mean, these things are cheap. I got 20 of them for $10, so it's not like they're hard to find. And if this happens again, I'll just replace them. And, you know, if I get tired of it, I'll maybe consider getting some ceramic ones. They are a lot pricier, honestly. The other thing is I don't have a puller or a splitter that's small enough to get in here, so I had ordered a couple of those pieces as well. Because this is, and it was actually kind of a struggle to find something small enough to handle this and this. This is roughly 50 millimeters and this is roughly 70 millimeters, and the stuff I have is shorter and the jaws are a lot thicker. It's automotive focused stuff, splitters and pullers, so it's not going to work. I've got some on order. I'll get it in, and when I get to that point, I'll pull those off and we can keep moving on, and I'll take you along for the ride. Alright, I'm back. Got my parts and pieces and thingamajiggers. So here's bearings. This is, I got pretty cheap ones. 20 for $10. These are pretty common. These are made in China, sadly. I'm sure I could, if I dug, I could find some made American ones, but kind of hard to find, surprisingly. Not unless you go to like Industrial Supply. Anyway, these spin fine, nothing wrong with them. as I said before, if these end up being not lasting long or having a problem, I'll probably try the ceramic ones out. But those things are pricey. So so the other thing I said, I didn't have a puller or bearing separator, etc. that was small enough. So I picked up, this is the puller, here's the separator. So now what I'm going to do is, if the puller doesn't work, I'm going to use the, I got some threaded rod, so I'll use the threaded rod plus the separator to pull it, but I'm pretty sure this will work. I did have a little trouble, I was just trying to get it to fit on right. This is deep enough, but the problem I'm running into is it's falling up before I get tension on it, so probably what I'll do is I've got holes in my bench, I'll drop it in one of my dog holes, which it'll sit, and then I'll put the puller on top so it'll balance, and then I'll pull it off. Probably won't show you that, because it'll be kind of a weird spot. Anyway, when I get this thing pulled off, I'll be back in a second. Though, if I get enough tension on it at holes and I can pull it out, I might show you what I do. Back in a second. Alright, apologies for this kind of weird setup here. It's working very well, actually. I have to hold the jaws in because there's just not enough tension really to hold it, but see, it pulls off just fine. Here's the bearing. This one might not be in bad shape. The other one, which I had said before, that is really filthy in the back. So I'm going to try this one. This setup just doesn't really let me do it unless I put it vertically like this. So, but let me try it. I'll see if I can get it so you can see it. Bear with me here, please. See if we can get this thing. Problem is I have to hold it because these arms are just a bit too big. We come in with socket wrench, and yeah, it's coming right off. In fact, yeah, oh, it's almost off. Sorry, let me try again here. This is not the most ideal angle, but it is definitely working. Yep, there we go. And they're both off. Let's got to get past this. There we go. Alright, so now they're off. I can go and put the other ones on. I'll show you a trick when I get to that, something I figured out, and I'll be back shortly. So, if you need to do that, I got this. This was about 20 bucks, 25, maybe more than that. I'll put a link. I got it on Amazon. Same thing for this. This was not inexpensive, and this was a backup if this didn't work. So the idea would be, and I'll include a video to an excellent video to a guy who has a lot of professional tools and picked up a lot of tips from what he did. He showed a bunch of different approaches on pulling it off, but the other possibility is you get threaded rod. Actually, I can pull this out so you can see what I'm talking about. With this bearing separator. And what you would do is, like if I use that, put it here, and then you have to assume the bearing is still there in place. But you pop this in here, and then you would have this would still sit on, push against the axle, or the shaft of the motor, and then you run two threaded rod through and link them into this and still screw it and pull it off, and then it would just pull on this thing. But the puller itself worked, and I'm really happy with that. So this worked out pretty well. These are the crappy ones. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, they spin pretty good, but just because they spin good now doesn't mean that when, again, you put them under load, they can start having a problem. So in any case, but I will say that that thing is filthy. It's got so much crud coming out of it. That might be the real problem. I mean, this is all what I'm wiping off. Well, let me show you, get you in frame. That's why I'm wiping off when I just wipe, and that should not be happening. I don't know, and it's slightly different bearing than this one. It almost looks like the seal has been gone, because there should be a rubber seal. Like, they should be the same bearing. I mean, if you flip them over and look, the numbers are the same. Yeah, I mean, this is the same bearing, but it looks like, yeah, okay, I get it. So there's a rubber seal. It's supposed to fit here. In fact, that's what this black is still. I don't know if you can see that. That is, let me face the orientation correctly. Yeah, so this black seal should be here around this bearing, and it's not. It's gone. It should look like this, and it's not. So that's what that's coming from. That is odd. Let's see, that would be this end, and there's a wavy washer that fits in there, so I'm not sure why this would be what it would be scraping against to cause that problem. I don't know. That's kind of weird. But that's what's hitting it. It's hitting this, and this wavy washer, it's weird that they have it. I mean, it's going to be a spring washer to put load. Well, yeah, see what's weird is it's like this scraping this thing. But I think that's the problem. And I wonder why they have this in here and why they don't have a shim like they do the other side. I guess it's a tension. So this is what's on the other side. And this is actually the side facing the motor. And let's see, where's the other end? If you look at this, there's no dirt or anything. It's just fine. So like this bearing is the one that sat in here and is okay. So very peculiar. It's like this washer is rubbing up against it and shredding the seal, which in turn is probably, well, I say probably might be the problem. I don't know. I mean, this is, I'm going to go look at this under a microscope or maybe a powerful magnifying glasses and see. I can figure out this should be against this. The shaft should be spinning on the inner, which means it should be fine, but I have to see what's actually spinning. So anyway, I'm going to go poke around a bit, and if there's anything that stands out, I'll come back and show you. But the next step after this is to put the E-clips back on, which is something I want to talk about with that for a second, and then put the new bearings on, press them on, and then put it back together, and in theory it should be fixed. So I'll be back in a bit. Alright, I think I figured out what happened. I think. So, you know, I said this bearing was dirty. Well, it's not dirty. I mean, it is, but what the problem is, let me get a pointing apparatus. Use a screwdriver. The problem is this bearing should look like this. So you notice, you see this is the rubber seal. Inner, outer, it's all in. And this rubber seal should be intact like this. And you should be able to spin the inner race with no trouble, like I'm doing right now. You can't really see it, but it is spinning. And this outer should stay still. So, but instead it looks like this. And there's still a bit of the seal left. That's what this rubber ring is, but there's this whole thing. It's all chowdered up. There's no rubber left. This inner one does spin, but it's a little stiffer. Again, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it is spinning. So, and if you also notice, let's see if I can show you, there's kind of some coppery looking metal here on the edge when it should look like this, like the stainless, the plate. So I think what's happened is, and if you look at the washer, this wavy washer, you can kind of see it. There's kind of these lighter spots here and here, and then the rest of it's dark. This is stuff that's been rubbing. So it's been, this washer's been sitting like this, and normally it should sit in a perfect circle, but it kind of slides in. And then I think what's happening is that the bearing, let's see if I can show you, the bearing seized up a bit, and this washer, instead of the inner spinning by itself and this outer ring staying still, the whole thing's been spinning, and it's been spinning against this washer. And the washer is wearing out the rubber seal along here. So I think that's what happened, which is why there's all this dirt and crud in here. It's actually the rubber seal, it's just gone. I'm going to clean all this out. I'm going to swap both bearings out. This bearing seems fine. This is the one at the front, but I already got it open, I already got it off. Might as well go ahead and change it. I don't see the point. It's hard to say if there's anything else that can be done about it. The only other thing I could think about would be to get a perfect size washer that would fit just on the outside, and will leave the inner ring alone. You know, wouldn't have any contact with it. But I don't know. That's a tall order, I think. They both spin. This one spins a little freer. It's still pretty stiff. But this one, the torn one, or the worn out one, I mean, it's got some problems. So I think that's what's happening. It makes me wonder. The thing is, I don't know that there's anything I can do about it. The problem is it's going to fit in like this, and it's not. You can't tell, but I can tell. There's a gap here. See where I can get the screwdriver underneath the edge. Let me see if I can get a better angle. You can see it. See, this is the tip. So like if I put it like this, it's there. If I slide it under, there's a gap, right? So the problem is this. Well, the problem is this washer seems to be. I mean, it almost seems like it's too thin, but it fits in. Well, it's pretty loose. I think that's the real problem. This washer is, see if I can show you, I can move it around pretty easily. It's got a lot of play. And I think what's happened is maybe it's like hopped out and it gets down a bit and starts rubbing. But this bearing, it actually shouldn't matter, because push this in, it should just hit up against it, and this outer ring, this inner ring's free to spin. So I don't know. Again, I'm not sure why this bearing had a problem. I mean, even with the issue I just saw, it should still be okay. I don't know. My concern is it's still going to stay a problem. I'm not sure what to do about it. I think in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and just replace it. It's hard. It's easy to do this. This isn't difficult. I've never done this before, but you can already see I've already popped it off. And put it back together and see how it works. I mean, I could try to replace this with something a little bit larger diameter. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, all right, I'm going to start putting this back together. So I'm going to set these two aside. In fact, I'm going to mark them and get some tape, because I'm curious to see what's up, and then I'm going to kind of hang on to them. And then I'm going to clean this out and then start putting it back together, so I can get my pump going again. Anyway, back shortly. Alright, I'm back, and thought some about this problem on the back of the motor with this spring washer or wavy washer, what have you, sitting there, and then the bearing, it flops around. And I've showed you before, I think, the best as I could. I think what I might try to do, so I can't find a washer that fits in. Like, for example, this is a 5/16, and sure, it fits in there just fine, but it moves around. You might be able to hear it, and it moves around too much. And the idea I was having was to put the washer, the regular washer, in between the wavy washer, so it'll still put pressure on the bearing, and that's fine. And then put, albeit a new bearing, but put this in against it, and so it would still push in. But the problem with that is this thing still slides around too. And I looked at a metric washer, and this bore is just, it's too big. I'd have to go get something machined. I don't have any machining equipment. I'm not a machinist. So the other thought I had was, what I'm trying to do is prevent this wavy washer from digging in to the seal on the bearing and then, screwing it up and all that. And it will happen again. I mean, it's happened once. There's no particular reason it won't happen again. So what I'm going to try this time is, what I was thinking was maybe get a piece of flashing here and then measuring the bore on you know, where the bearing sits, and then cutting a piece of flashing out, drilling a hole in the middle slightly larger for the shaft, and then putting the flashing, put the spring in, the flashing, and then put the bearing in. And even if this slides around, this flashing hopefully would protect the bearing seal from getting chowdered up if this thing slides around. It wouldn't actually pop in the seal and rip this thing apart. So that's just a thought. May not work, but I can't make it any worse. It's already going to do it again. So that's a thought I had. I might try that, see if I can get it. And if not, I'll just go back and do it again with the expectation that perhaps in another 8 or 9 months it'll go, and in the meantime figure out another option on trying to deal with this problem. If anybody has any ideas, I'd like to know. I mean, like I said, short of machining, I don't know if there's anything else I can do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on this, and I'll bring you back in when I make some progress on that. Alright, I got my little, I don't know what you call it, shim. Pretty crude, but good enough, I think. So what'll happen is, if I can find the other part, where is that spring washer at? Here it is. So what'll happen is, this will go in. This is the wavy washer. This will go in on top of it. You notice it doesn't really move around much. It's locked in pretty tight. And of course the bearing is going to go on top of that. It's not really going to add any thickness at all. It still will compress fine. I mean, this flashing's pretty thin. But that should give it, I would like to think, a little protection so that that thin wavy washer won't dig into the insulation. Anyway, so that's what, it's just my idea for that. If it doesn't work and the thing gets chowdered up again, well, I've got 18 more bearings. It's not like it's a big problem. So I'll change these out as I need it and maybe try to make a better one. This is pretty crude. Use some snips and all that. Might come up with a better solution. Anyway, I'm waiting on one more part. I got 2 E-Clips. Well, 3. And in fact, I'll talk about these when I get the other ones in, because I got a mini tool review. Yeah, not a positive one. Anyway, when those get in and I put the clips back on, start putting this thing back together with the new bearings, I'll bring you back in. Alright, so I got my parts in. The external retaining ring set. These actually aren't too bad. You can pick them up on Amazon, other places sell them, eBay. Sorry for the glare. Just your standard E-Clips. They're a little different from Circlips. They look like, you can see it, the letter E, because it's E. Anyway, well, that's what I say. Anyway, so reason I lost one, and the reason why I had to get it was because of the quote AVE. It went springing and flew off into the sunset, and I wasn't able to find it. So with that said, I did get a tool, and as I said before a second ago, I am going to do a little tool review. So in the past, usually when I work with E-Clips, what I've done is I've used, like most people, I use a screwdriver to pop them off, then I use pliers or something else to smush them back on. But I was like, hey, I need to find a tool that's better than that. Why not? There's got to be one. These things are common. And so I bought this one from Neiko, or Neiko, however you pronounce it. I bought other things from them in the past. I have like a slide hammer set, which is very nice. I've used it, and it works very well. And then I also have a light from them that I like a lot. So this isn't something that, you know, I've had experience with them, and usually what they make is pretty decent. It comes in a tray. This is the tray. And then here's the instructions with it. You can look them online if you want. I'll have a link in the description. Made in Taiwan, so, you know, Taiwanese stuff is better and then made in China. It's inexpensive, but usually pretty decent quality. Tool itself isn't bad, as I would expect. It's made pretty decent. The handle's pretty solid. It has this button you push in, and then you get these 4 blades. And the blades are they have two sides. One's for removal, which you can't really see it, but there's a release here. And then on the side it says insert, and then has a size. This one is an E6, which is supposedly a 6mm, but they also tell you on the back that the 6mm is roughly 1/4 inch, and that's probably about right. I think in this case the size was an 8. For this, it's actually a little bit off. So to use it, like let's say I'm going to pop one loose, I take the insert side and I push it in. I push this button, I slide it in, and it clicks. Okay, and it works. That's pretty nice. Handle feels pretty good. And then if I'm going to pop it out, you have to imagine that it's on the shaft. You're supposed to come in and push, and this one doesn't quite. It's not the right size. I think it's the smaller one I tried it. Well, when I tried that, releasing it, yeah, it didn't work. I couldn't get anything off. And finally, I just resorted back to the good old way of taking a screwdriver, getting it in there, and popping it out. And that worked fine. Then I was like, well, okay, maybe it's just this ring. I don't know. But these are pretty small rings, and this seems to be the size that matches, so I'm just kind of irritated about that. So for the release part, yeah, it just doesn't seem to work very well. Again, that's my experience. Maybe others are better. Now for the insulation side, let's say you're going to insert it back in the shaft. You flip it around. After you push the button, pull it out, flip it around, and then you push it in, if I could slide, and there you go, snapped in. Again, this part works well for the tool, and again, it fits pretty well. Now this is a little better. They have, you can't see it, but there's a little indentation there in the edge of the tool where you pop the E-Clip in like that. Now, that seems pretty decent, except when I was trying to put one back in, like I said before, it just popped way off. Now, I have actually used this tool and successfully installed one, but what I had to do was I have to put my finger on it so it doesn't go flying off, and then use it like this, and it snaps on. That seems to work. I would think that if they wanted to try to make this tool better, so that you wouldn't have to do that, maybe they can make this indentation a little deeper, and then maybe they can make the tip magnetic. I mean, these are steel. I don't think they're going to be anything but that. I could be wrong, but that would help a bunch. Apart from that, I think if they did that, I don't think the idea is bad. And there are other manufacturers that make these. This is just one that I picked up because it's a brand that I know, and I figured, hey, it would work. So first thing I got to do though, and that's my mini tool review. So you put this on, and then we're gonna talk about some other stuff here. We're gonna go to the next part. So that's it for this. Like I said, I'll have a link in the description below. Maybe some people have some comments or thoughts about this tool. I'm gonna keep it. I think I can use it again in other cases, like I'm about to use again here in a minute. Now, so I have another video I've got linked in the description where about a gentleman who was going and he was showing tools he used to remove and replace bearings on an electric motor. Now the motor he had was huge, and he has some pretty specialized tools, pretty similar to what I showed earlier, like this bearing puller. I think he used a splitter with one half of the puller. He didn't use the jaws. He had threaded rod. And he did it a couple of different ways. One similar to me where he used a socket wrench, and then another where he used a hydraulic, I don't know what you call it, hydraulic press to push it out. And then he also had a set to reinstall the bearings, which he said was expensive and seemed to be pretty specialized. So I was thinking about that, and I realized, well, there's an easier way to do it. All you need is a big washer, one that is preferably larger than the bearing you're pushing, pressing back in place, and then the hole needs to be slightly larger than the shaft, like so. And then what you can do is you can take a block, and like I took this, I cut it 90 degrees square, and then I tried to drill a hole. I did it by hand, but you could use a drill press if you got one to make it better, but I did it by hand. It should be fine. And you want it to be somewhat longer than the longest shaft. In my case, the reason I say that is that this shaft is actually longer than this shaft. So the idea is you put the bearing on, you put the washer on, you put this over it, and then you come in and, like, if you put it here in a bit, you could hold it. I mean, that's probably fine. And then you use a mallet and gently tap it in place till it pushes up against the E-Clip. and it's seated back in place. So I'm going to do that. I may try to set one of them up so you can see me doing it, and then just do the other off camera. If I do that, I will show you back shortly. Alright, switch you around. As you can see, I've driven this on. It was very trivial to do it with this approach. So I'll show you another. Let's see if I can get you lined up right. Get you in focus here. So there's this. Actually, let me grab my bearing. This is a new bearing. Got two sleeves here. Let's see. This one's going to be a little tougher because this shaft is a little thicker on this end. This one was very tapered. In fact, it didn't really bite until here on the bottom. So this one you can see I've already, well, actually I'd take that back. Make me out to be a liar. Before I do that though, I have to put on the E-Clip. So let us do that real quick here. Let's see, this clip size was this one. And I will pull out the tool. Do it again as an 8. And then, let's see, this is, whoa, dropping it all over the place. This is release. This is insert. Take this, gently hold it in here like so. And then put it on here. Make sure it's in the slot. Popped it in. It's in. Yeah, there we go. This one's a little looser, but it's still good. It isn't going to go anywhere. And that's that. Like I said, it works better on insulation. Removing it, just not so much. So take it here, slide this down. There's no particular orientation. They're both the same. It's the same way on either side. Put it here, put this on, and then, and it's already on. Simple, easy. Now I got new bearings. And you can see it spins quite well, and there's no noise. Yeah, these bearings are better because the other ones would stop after a bit. Anyway, all right, I'm going to get things set back up. I think I've got one more thing to do on this. I've got to put on this part. This is the fan that goes on the back, which goes on this end. This is going to also be a little stiffer spot. And what it does is it goes on, there's a clip here, another E-clip that goes on the end actually to hold this in place. But it has to go in a certain distance. And then at that point, I think I should be pretty good to go. Anyway, or I may have made a mistake and maybe put, no, I did this right. Sorry, I'm having another brain malfunction. Anyway, this will go on the end. And this is the fan that sits there and blows out. I'm going to go ahead and get set back up, and I think what I'll do after, once I get this on, because I need to be careful with this, I need to make sure I put it on right. And actually I don't remember the orientation, so I'm going to have to go back through the video and make sure I've got the right thing when I pulled it off. But it's going to sit on, and there's again another clip, so it's going to sit. Oh, I remember now. Yeah, it goes in. There's a kind of a, I guess, like a keyway cut out. It's not really a keyway, but there's a slot cut out so this thing slides up and only goes in so far. And then it'll stop, and then the clip holds it in place from the other side so it can't go anywhere. And I think, I don't know, no, it has to go this way. I have to find the orientation. So as I work on this, probably what I'll do is I might just record as I put the rest of it back together and just not say anything and just do it. And you can watch as I stumble along to get this thing back together. And then when I'm done, we'll start it up and see how it goes. So, back shortly. Alright, as you can tell, it's mostly back together. Sorry. I said I was going to record as I put it back together. I didn't really say much, but ended up having a couple issues, and I didn't record most of it. And, okay, sorry. It's the way it works. If you're going to do this yourself, record yourself taking it apart. That's what helps a lot. It helped me because I went back and looked at the video. Turns out, rookie error, and I certainly own up to mine, and this was a big one. I put the stator in reverse. I kept wondering why the ground seemed off and why I was having to struggle with this top, because I was able to, when I took it apart, tip it over. And it was a tight fit, but it wasn't a problem. Well, I reversed it. But fortunately, I caught it long before I got too far into it and fixed it. It wasn't a big deal. Just uninstalled things all the way down to the base, flipped it around, put it back in, and everything went together right. I would say I'm not quite yet done, and what I have left to do is I have to, let's see, I have to put this other part, which spins here, this thing I said that's kind of weird, put this in, and then put this part on the front, which fortunately only fits one way, like so. And there's, if I can get it in there. Anyway, put this in. It's going to be a little bit of a trick, honestly. I think I'd go like that. Yeah, there we go. And then I have to go and screw this thing on. There's 7 nuts and bolts, and I have to flip it up like so, with the facing up so I can get to it. So I'm not going to record that, and then I'll put this back on when I'm done. But before I do that, just to let you know that this thing does indeed work, and this fix is valid. Got it plugged up, I've already tested it, and here, I'll put it like so. Won't really be able to see it, but well, thought I had it turned on. Here we go. Fixed, works great. Actually sounds pretty good. It's going to have to break in a little bit, I think. I re-sealed this stuff and all that, so, but it's this is what it should sound like with no load and everything open, no noise. So I mean, you're going to get some noise, but you know, nothing really bad. So anyway, that's where I'm at with that. When I'm completely done, I'll wrap up. So back in a moment. Alright, as you can tell, I've got this thing back together. Everything works fine. Pretty happy with the fix. Works fine. Sounds good. It's all reassembled. So, from the question of, I guess the first question would be, you know, if you've got one of these and it's failed like this, or the bearings are wearing out, let's be specific what the problem was. Should you bother trying to change the bearings out? Change bearings out on an electric motor is a rather common thing. It's so common they have specialized tools for it, or even cheap tools as the ones that, and I say cheap, they're not cheap, they're not free, but they work. Probably given, let's say if I take the E-Clips, which are about, I think, $7, and the bearings, which are 10, and then the bearing puller, which is about, I think I paid 25. I mean, you're talking probably $40. And then, of course, you know, you have to have the confidence, I guess, to go and dive in and do something like this with the possibility that it's not going to work, or you can make it worse. Because in this case, you could actually make this worse. It is functioning. It's just beginning to malfunction. It's on the way out, and to where it will fail completely. At least in my case. I don't know what your situation is, or even if you have one like this. So then that begs the next question, which is, or leads to the next question, is a better way to put it, which is, okay, if I don't do this, what do I do? Well, Intex does sell this. And I say this as a part, see if I can get you this as a part on the site. You got to go dig and find it, but you can find them. In my case, I think their list price for this was $74. I think if you can find the part number, maybe you can find it somewhere else, maybe cheaper. I don't know. This is just direct from Intex, though. That might be the more confident and comfortable way to approach this, and that's a valid approach if it's beginning to go, or if somebody has it and it's already died. I don't know. In my case, I replaced the bearings, put everything back together. I'm happy with it. And here's the thing: in my case, the bearing puller, I have tons of E-Clips. I have 18 more bearings. All the other pieces and bits, I have all that stuff. It's not going to go away. And if this goes out again in, say, another year and a half, which is likely, given that it's happened once, I can go and make the same change again. As long as the electronics, and specifically in front of the windings, the wiring, what's up in the switch part, etc., is not broken, if the bearings keep wearing out, I can keep replacing them. I've got 18 more, which roughly translates into 9 more times. I mean, if I'm getting, say, a year and a half, that's 13 years out of a pump. I'd say this would be pretty good, honestly, for a piece of Intex equipment, because usually those things only, in my experience, only last 3 to 4 years, their equipment. So, anyway, that's, this is the end of it. Hope you enjoyed this. It was certainly an experience, and one I'm actually happy, because when you fix something and it works, it's always a positive in my mind. Anyway, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Just remember, the quest is the quest, and thanks for watching.